And that is because decision-taking in modern democratic societies has to have some evidential, objective, rational basis. And this was exemplified to me recently by John Humphreys. John Humphreys always exemplifies things, of course, but on the Today programme, you may remember he interviewed Tony Blair a little while before he left office and tackled him immediately on the question of why did we go to war with Iraq? And Tony Blair made a small slip. He replied by saying, because I believed it was right. And immediately John Humphreys pounced on this and said, so that's why we went to war, because you believed it. Not because it was good for the country, not because of the impacts in military terms, not because of any rational or scientific basis, because you believed it was right. And I think somebody said the same about President Bush making a similar statement earlier on. In other words, to actually come to a decision on the basis of a belief, whatever the nature of that belief, in governmental terms, again, I think has become untenable. A few examples of that. Until recently, I was Deputy Chairman of the Environment Agency. And constantly, any decision we took as a government agency, Quango of course, would be challenged. If we decided to prosecute a factory for pollution, if we didn't have the evidence to back that up, scientific evidence, if we hadn't gone through a proper process, immediately that was challenged in the courts. And I have to say that at least 75% of the legislation we were operating came from Europe, not from national government anyway, so potentially it was challengeable, not necessarily within the nation state, but at a European level. If we take even something as mundane as recruitment process, something which has changed fundamentally again over the last 30, 40 years, if somebody is now recruited on the basis which is seen to be less than objective, then it is challengeable in certain circumstances on the basis of religious or ethnic discrimination. You have to produce chapter of evidence, you have to have a rational basis for the decision. Or even something which is more belief-based, I guess, something like hunting is wrong. People believe hunting is wrong, and they advance the view that therefore hunting should stop. Other people say, well, hang on, we think hunting is right. If you take the social consequences of that, look at the tradition of Britain or whatever, we think it is right. So what therefore mediates that decision is a pseudo-scientific basis about looking at the impacts on the animal, how long it takes to die, looking at the impacts on communities and so on. So there has to be some rational basis, because increasingly every decision, whether at the national, local or international level, is challengeable. And we are seeing a complete burgeoning of that level of challenge and intervention, not just simply within democratic states, but between democratic states. So, to me, a question of the belief system, whether it is faith-based or not, is not the key issue here. It is about the nature of rational democratic states and the way that decisions are taken. So I think we should be advancing the notion of multi-faith societies as a positive, as something which is not only legitimate, it's necessary, it's desirable, and basically there is no way I can see that multi-faith societies can ever be considered secular societies, and that we should encourage different faiths to be putting forward their points of view, to arguing their corner, if you like, alongside other belief systems, alongside other points of view. And of course there are inherent dangers in that for religious groups as well. But secondly, that when it comes to the decision-taking process, the process of governance itself, whether that is at local level, regional level, or national or international level, then there has to be a separation of decision-taking, which has to be, in my view, objective as far as objectivity can ever be completely tested, particularly through the legal system. And governance can only be seen to be fair and rational between different groups if it's seen that the influence of each of those groups is also fair and equal.
Thank you very much. Can I ask for a round of applause for